Why does that man who seemed so interested in you suddenly become elusive? Why does that person who claimed to love you now avoid every deep conversation? Picture this scenario. You're talking with someone you like. The conversation flows smoothly, but suddenly you notice his gaze shifts. His responses become vague, as if he's running from something. According to Sigmund Freud, behind every seemingly inexplicable behavior hides a secret obsession, a repressed desire so powerful that the conscious mind prefers to deny it. What you're about to discover will completely change how you interpret the signals from people around you. Today, we'll explore 6 unconscious obsessions that govern male behavior in relationships, revelations that he himself cannot recognize. If you want to continue exploring the secrets of human behavior, subscribe to the channel. The first signal concerns that fear he experiences every time he feels too vulnerable. Recognize it immediately. When a man starts distancing himself precisely when the relationship deepens, he's not losing interest. He's fighting against his deepest obsession, the terror of losing emotional control. Imagine you and he just experienced a moment of authentic intimacy. You shared something personal, looked into each other's eyes longer than usual, or laughed together until tears came. The next day, however, he seems detached, responds with cold messages, avoids calling you back. What happened? According to Freud, the male psyche is built around defense mechanisms that protect the ego from emotions considered dangerous. The superego, that part of the mind representing internalized social norms, constantly whispers, men must not be emotional, must not depend, must not appear weak. When he gets too close to you, when he starts feeling something real, an internal alarm triggers. This isn't a rational choice. It's an automatic defense mechanism that Freud called reaction formation. Instead of admitting his own vulnerability, the unconscious produces the opposite behavior. He becomes cold precisely because he's burning inside. He distances himself precisely because he wants to get closer. The problem is, this obsession with emotional control creates a vicious cycle. The more he tries to protect his emotions, the more rigid and distant he becomes. The more distant he becomes, the more rejected you feel. And the more rejected you feel, the more he perceives having regained control of the situation. But here's the truth his unconscious hides. Behind this control obsession lies a desperate hunger for authentic connection. Every time he distances himself, part of him is screaming to be seen, understood, accepted in his fragility. How to recognize this pattern? Observe the escape moments. If he detaches always after moments of particular emotional intimacy, if he avoids deep conversations after seeking them, if he alternates moments of closeness with phases of inexplicable coldness, you're seeing his control obsession in action. The Freudian projection here is clear. He projects onto you his own fear of losing independence. He sees you as a threat to his internal balance, when in reality, you're exactly what his soul desires most. Have you ever noticed this pattern in your relationships? Have you ever seen someone run away precisely when things were becoming beautiful? But this is only the first of 6 obsessions. The next concerns something even deeper. His secret need to be saved by you while pretending to be the savior. Don't ignore this signal. When he seems to constantly seek your approval, when he needs you to reassure him about every decision, when he gets angry if you don't respond immediately to his messages, you're not seeing possessiveness. You're seeing his most secret obsession, the desperate search for lost maternal love. Imagine this situation. He's an apparently confident man, successful, independent. But when you're together, you notice he constantly seeks small confirmations. Do you like how I dressed today? Do you think I did well saying that to my boss? Are you proud of me? These aren't signs of superficial insecurity. They're echoes of a primordial need that remained unsatisfied. Freud had theorized the Oedipal complex, but what isn't discussed enough is how this manifests in adult relationships through maternal transference. The adult man, unconsciously, seeks in his partner that unconditional security, that total acceptance he should have received from his mother in early years of life. The mechanism works like this. The id, the most primitive part of the psyche, continues seeking that feeling of absolute protection. When he was a child, the mother represented the only source of secure love. If this relationship was insufficient or traumatic, the adult will carry within himself a wound he'll constantly seek to heal. But here's the paradox. The more he needs this maternal love, the more his adult ego rebels against this need. Because recognizing needing a mother would mean admitting not being completely grown up. So he develops compensatory defense mechanisms. You'll see these mechanisms in action when he alternates moments of extreme emotional dependency with phases of hyper-independence. One day he needs you for every little thing. The next day he behaves as if he could live perfectly well without you. This isn't volatile mood. It's his psyche oscillating between the id's need and the ego's resistance. Repression is another key signal. He removes from consciousness the memory of moments when he felt particularly needy of your support. The day after a crisis, when he desperately sought you, he behaves as if nothing happened. The strongest signal of this obsession? Observe how he reacts when you show affection for other men, even in innocent contexts. The jealousy he feels isn't romantic. It's primitive, infantile, like that of a child seeing his mother give attention to someone else. But there's also a touching side to all this. When he seeks your approval, when he lights up when you compliment him, when he completely relaxes only when he feels safe with you, you're seeing the purest and most vulnerable part of his soul. That part that never stopped being that child who just needed to feel unconditionally loved. Have you ever felt a man seek your approval disproportionately? Have you ever noticed that particular vulnerability that emerges when he feels completely safe with you? But the third obsession is even more hidden. It concerns his compulsive need to continuously conquer your love, even when he's already obtained it. Pay attention to this model. If he can never completely relax in the relationship, if he continues courting you even after years together, if he always needs proof that you love him, you're not seeing romanticism. You're witnessing his most exhausting obsession, the inability to believe he truly deserves the love he's already conquered. Imagine you've been together for months, maybe years. He should feel secure in your love, yet he continues behaving as if he must conquer you anew every day. He plans continuous surprises, worries excessively if you seem even slightly distracted, interprets every moment of your tiredness as a sign you're losing interest. According to Freud, this obsession stems from what he called psychological castration complex. A deep unconscious conviction of not being enough to maintain someone's love. The unconscious tells him, if you stop trying, she'll realize who you really are and leave. The main defense mechanism here is compulsion to repeat. Instead of processing the fear of losing love, the id forces him to obsessively repeat the behaviors that allowed him to obtain it initially. It's as if his psyche was stuck in the conquest phase, unable to move to the stable intimacy phase. This creates a devastating paradox. The more he tries to secure your love through continuous actions, the more he reveals his deep insecurity. And the more he reveals this insecurity, the more he feeds his conviction of not being worthy of free, unconditional love. Projection plays a crucial role. He projects onto you his own inability to love unconditionally. Since he himself would struggle to love someone without expecting continuous performances, he assumes you function the same way. Observe these signals. He can never simply say, "thank you," when you compliment him. He must always add something like, "but it's not true," or "wait until you know me better." Or he interprets every compliment as an implicit request to do even more. Reaction formation manifests when he transforms his fear of not being lovable into hyper-affectionate activity. Instead of saying, "I'm afraid you might stop loving me," he organizes a romantic dinner. Instead of admitting, "I feel insecure," he buys an expensive gift. But here's the deepest truth. Behind this obsession of infinite conquest is a child who never received free love. Perhaps his parents loved him only when he behaved well, when he had good grades, when he made them proud. He learned that love is something you earn, not something you receive for existing. The result is an adult who doesn't know how to behave when love is really there, stably, without conditions. He doesn't know how to be in love. He only knows how to do for love. The most touching thing, when you tell him, "I love you for who you are, not for what you do," he doesn't really believe you. His mind interprets these words as kindness, not as truth. Have you ever had the feeling that someone was trying too hard in their relationship with you? Have you ever seen a person unable to relax in love, even when it was mutual and secure? But the fourth obsession touches even more delicate territory. His secret need to control you, masked as protection and love. Immediately recognize this pattern. When he says he's protecting you, but actually wants to always know where you are, when he worries about your safety but checks your social media, when he says he loves you too much not to be jealous, you're not seeing intense love. You're seeing his most dangerous obsession, the need to completely possess you, masked as affection. Imagine this scene. He tells you you're too precious. "I don't want someone to hurt you," while asking for the third time in a day who you went to lunch with. Or he comments, "I trust you, but I don't trust other men," while scrutinizing your messages. These aren't manifestations of love. They're symptoms of pathological narcissism projected onto the relationship. The male unconscious, according to Freud, can develop the idea that the love object, you, is actually an extension of his own ego. This mechanism is called projective identification. He doesn't see you as a separate person with your own life, but as a part of himself that he must protect and control to feel complete. The unresolved Oedipal complex plays a fundamental role here. If, as a child, he experienced a possessive mother who controlled him for love, or a father who possessed the mother dysfunctionally, his internal model of love automatically includes elements of control. Rationalization is the main defense mechanism. Every controlling behavior gets justified with apparently noble motivations. "I check your phone because I care about you. I don't want you going out with your friends because some of them have bad influences." But there's an even more subtle signal. Observe how he reacts when you make autonomous decisions without consulting him, even on matters that don't directly concern him. If he feels threatened when you demonstrate independence, if he interprets your autonomy as lack of love, you're seeing possessiveness in action. Projection becomes particularly toxic here. He projects onto you his own impulses of infidelity or betrayal. Since he, in different situations, might be tempted by other people, he assumes you function the same way. The most insidious mechanism is what Freud called double bind. He creates situations where anything you do confirms his suspicions. If you protest against his control, you prove you have something to hide. If you don't protest, you prove you accept his right to control you. But behind this possession obsession is a primordial fear: abandonment. He doesn't control you because he doesn't trust you. He controls you because he has a deep and irrational terror that you might realize you deserve better and leave. Control is his unconscious strategy to prevent this catastrophic loss. The most tragic thing is, this behavior creates exactly what he fears. The more he possesses you, the more you feel the need for freedom. The more he controls you for love, the more you question whether what you feel is really love. Have you ever heard someone justify controlling behaviors with phrases like, "I do it because I love you"? Have you ever seen the difference between genuine protection and masked possessiveness? But the fifth obsession concerns something that happens in the bedroom, where he reveals his deepest insecurities through physical intimacy. Never underestimate this signal. When physical intimacy becomes for him a matter of performance rather than connection, when he seems more worried about impressing you than sharing pleasure with you, when the act of love transforms into a test to pass, you're witnessing his most vulnerable obsession, the desperate need to prove his own virility through sexuality. Imagine this dynamic. You're together intimately, but instead of losing himself in the moment, he's constantly vigilant. He controls your reactions, seeks confirmations, concentrates more on results than sensations, or he completely avoids intimacy for fear of not being up to par. This isn't healthy perfectionism, it's the physical manifestation of deep psychological insecurities. Freud had identified in sexuality the center of many psychic conflicts. What he called castration anxiety isn't just a phase of infant development, but can manifest in adults as unconscious terror of not being man enough. Intimacy then becomes a battlefield where the ego must constantly prove to the superego that it's worthy of its masculine role. The displacement mechanism is central here. Instead of facing his general insecurities, he shifts all anxiety onto intimate performance. It's as if he tells himself, if I can be perfect here, I'll prove I'm a real man in everything. But observe this Freudian paradox. The more he concentrates on performance, the less he manages to be present in the moment. And the less present he is, the less intimacy is authentic and pleasurable for both. This creates a vicious cycle. Unsatisfactory performances increase anxiety, which increases fixation on performance. Reaction formation manifests when he transforms his vulnerability into sexual aggressiveness. Instead of admitting, I'm afraid you won't like me, he becomes dominant or hyperactive, or he transforms his insecurity into total avoidance, always finding excuses to postpone intimacy. The most revealing signal: observe if he can remain present after intimacy. If he gets distracted immediately, if he avoids eye contact, if he needs immediate confirmations, if he concentrates immediately on something else, you're seeing his inability to process the vulnerability that intimacy entails. Projection plays a crucial role. He projects onto you his unrealistic expectations. He assumes you're judging his every movement, that you're making comparisons, that you have expectations he must satisfy. Freud had intuited that adult sexuality always carries with it the echo of first experiences and insecurities. If he had negative messages about sexuality during adolescence, if he suffered traumas or humiliations related to the body, all this will manifest in adult intimacy. But here's the deepest truth. Behind this obsession with performance is a desperate desire to be completely accepted, even in his fragilities. When he concentrates on performance, he's actually trying to hide the part of himself he fears you might reject, the human, imperfect, vulnerable one. The most beautiful thing happens when he finally abandons this obsession and discovers that true intimacy begins precisely where performance ends. But this requires a level of trust that many men take years to develop. Have you ever noticed this difference between performative intimacy and authentic intimacy? Have you ever seen someone transform a moment of connection into a test to pass? But there's a sixth and final obsession, perhaps the most hidden of all, his secret need for you to leave him, because it's the only ending his traumatized mind can imagine. This is the most painful obsession to recognize, when he systematically sabotages every moment when the relationship could become truly stable and happy, when he seems almost to seek reasons to fight precisely when everything is going well, when he behaves in such a way as to push you to leave. It's not masochism, it's his most tragic obsession, the unconscious need to provoke the abandonment he considers inevitable. Imagine this devastating dynamic. You've spent wonderful weeks together, you're closer than ever, everything seems perfect. Right at that moment, he starts behaving strangely. He becomes irritable over trifles, seeks fights, makes sarcastic comments, becomes distant. It's as if happiness terrified him more than pain. Freud had theorized what he called compulsion to repeat, the unconscious impulse to repeat traumatic situations from the past, even when they're painful. If he experienced significant abandonments, his psyche might be programmed to always expect the same ending. The mechanism is cruel, but logical for the unconscious. If abandonment is inevitable, it's better that I control it. It's better that it happens when I decide, rather than suffer the surprise of betrayal. So the id pushes towards self-destructive behaviors that guarantee the feared result. Identification with the aggressor is another central mechanism. If as a child he experienced being abandoned by important figures, he might have internalized the role of the one who abandons to protect himself from the pain of being the one who gets abandoned. Observe these disturbing signals. He becomes more destructive precisely when you show more love. The more you commit to the relationship, the more he finds defects and problems. The more you try to reassure him, the more he interprets your reassurances as proof that sooner or later you'll leave anyway. Projection here reaches extreme levels. He projects onto you his own inability to stay. Since part of him wants to run when things become serious, he assumes you're also just waiting for the right moment to leave. The cruelest paradox is this behavior creates exactly what he fears. The more he sabotages the relationship to protect himself from abandonment, the more he pushes you toward the door. And when you finally leave, exhausted by his psychological games, he has the confirmation he was seeking. See, I knew you would leave, but there's a detail that reveals everything. Observe how he reacts if you, despite everything, don't leave. If you continue loving him despite his sabotages, if you stay despite his provocations, he panics, because he doesn't know how to handle a love that doesn't run away. Freud would have recognized in this the compulsion of destiny, the unconscious idea that we're condemned to always repeat the same relational patterns. He's not just waiting for you to leave, he's actively working for it to happen, because it's the only ending his traumatized mind can imagine. The deepest truth behind this obsession: he's more afraid of happiness than pain. Pain is familiar to him. He knows it, knows how to survive it. Stable happiness, lasting love are unknown territories that terrify him more than any suffering. When you recognize this pattern, you're seeing a soul that needs to heal before being able to truly love. Have you ever seen someone sabotage their own happiness precisely when it was within reach? Have you ever witnessed this tragic dance between love and self-destruction? Now that you know these Freudian dynamics, a final question. How much of what you interpreted as lack of love was actually fear of loving too much? What city are you watching from? Comment down below if this touched you in some way. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.